Well, this object is going to be a little bit more tricky because I have a high density wireframe across the section, so I'm going to have to be a lot more a lot more picky in terms of my polygons. At the same time, a lot of these wrinkles are different from one side to another, and I don't know, I just honestly think that this is going to be a little bit more tricky. So anyways, let me just start. First of all, I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to split the model into two sections. I'm going to have to then work on each pant leg individually. So this section and that section individually. I'm also going to be splitting this into back and front. But basically, the problem that I'm going to run into when I split this model into two halves, as in, just this piece, well, this area and this area, what's going to happen is right now I see a seam or a center line going across this model this way. And it goes down this way up until this point here, and then you see a split. This is going to make it a little tricky because this area right here does not make this model symmetrical. If I was going to, for example, cut right around here, there's a nice seam, that's going to work. This is going to work. This front here is going to work, but this might cause a little bit of a problem. But for the purpose of just, a work in progress cut, it really doesn't matter. I'm not really trying to finalize my cuts into a left and right. What I really want to do is I just want to split this into two pieces, just temporarily, so I can then go ahead and split these sections, individually and have an easier time picking around this model and just subtracting polygons and, doing all that. So let's just go ahead and just Control click, and actually I should undo this. And before I start working, what I really should do is I should go into my tool. I'm going to turn off my subtool menu here. I'm going to go down into geometry, and in geometry I'm going to go ahead and just lower this model once again, the same way that it did with the t-shirt, down to level 1. This is going to make it a lot easier for me because there's just many less polygons to work with. I am no longer working with, if I look here, 4.2 million polygons. I am now working with, if we just wait a second, I'm working with only 16,000. That's a lot less. So first thing I want to do is I want to press Control and Shift, and I want to change this back to rectangle. This way I can very easily select one side from another. And of course, right now I have symmetry on, so this might make things a little bit tricky. So let me just turn off symmetry by pressing X. I'm just going to go ahead and just hide one part of the model, like that. And I'm going to go ahead and just go into polygroups and press auto groups. Control Shift, click outside, and now we have the left and right section of this model. And as you can see right now, there's this stepping going on here. But for the sake of work in progress, this really doesn't affect me at all. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and just try to split this model into a front and back. And I probably should have done this before splitting this into two pieces. But so I might actually have to redo the split into both halves. But anyways, for now, I'm just going to go ahead and just go into stroke, go into lasso here. And I'm just going to go ahead and just try to decide where it is that I want to cut. And I'm going to, I guess, choose this. And first of all, you really don't have to be too accurate on the first pass, because what you're going to be doing from now, is you're going to be subtracting whatever polygons you have here. Now, to make this a little easier, once again, what I could have done is I could have gone ahead and just hid either the front or the back to really not get in the way. For now, though, I'm just going to go ahead and just keep subtracting. So Control Shift. I'm going to subtract some of these polygons. Control Shift Alt. Control Shift Alt. That's pretty much all there really is to it. Again, all you want to do is you just want to touch these polygons to subtract them. Now, I will actually have to subtract a few more than I have here, so I'm just going to go over this section like that. And I'm just going to keep going until this entire seam is very even all the way throughout. And again, all I want to do is I just want to touch these sections. And if you're getting a little bit uncomfortable about making a mistake further down the line, you could very easily just do something like this where you're only working a small section at a time, and perhaps even zoom into the model more like this, because that way at the very least you have more accuracy in how you're working. Now there's 2 polygons missing from here, not a problem. What I could do is I could just go ahead and just group visible or auto groups, either one will work. I'm just going to go ahead and just group visible here. Now I'm going to make the entire model visible, and I'm just going to go ahead and just select the front portion. I'm going to subtract this, auto group again, and now you have these 2 polygons that are kind of in between these 2 groups. So I'm just going to Control Shift and select this part here to include those 2 polygons. I'm going to go once again into auto groups, and now those 2 polygons are back into that group. Of course, now we have a little bit of dirt happening in this front section here, or in this part of the model. Again, not a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep subtracting until I have a very clean seam. Now, I constantly forget to press the Alt button, but let's see where this is going to go. This seam is actually going to go all the way up into this pole here. Then it's going to go down like that. Yeah, I think that'll work. So let me just go ahead and just subtract all that. And again, you don't have to be too accurate with this. You could just, as long as you know that you're working up to this pole, then you could very easily subtract that whole section. And again, if you're not too confident about doing all this in one go, just remember that you can do this in sections. Oh. Whenever you make a mistake, if you, for example, just make everything visible like this, you can just very easily press Ctrl Z to undo, and it'll change the model so that you have your polygroup selected to whatever you had before. See, like this. I'm just going to press Ctrl Z to undo. Of course, here I made a mistake, so I'm just going to Ctrl Z and undo. And of course I have to do the exact same thing. I'm going to now follow this line right here, and I'm going to subtract all this stuff in here. Now it gets a little tricky from this angle, because there really is a lot of compression, a lot of things going on in that area. But I just take one thing at a time. I subtract only a few polygons at a time, like this. And we are almost done with this. Of course, the one thing we're missing is we're still missing a few polygons from this side, but that's not a problem. I can always add them a little bit later. So I'm going to auto group this, so I have very clean seams going all the way across. Let's go back into this front group here. I'm going to select this, Control Z or Control Shift, click on here. I'm now going to subtract these polygons from this group. So Control Shift, draw over here, subtract these polygons, do an auto group, unhide everything, Control Shift and click between this seam. And sometimes you might get a little bit of a problem, because if you pick in the wrong way, you might get a whole loop to disappear. Anyways, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get these 2 groups showing. I'm now going to go back into group auto groups or group visible. Now, as you can see, I have done just that. And now, of course, I have to include this group with all this. So I'm just going to go ahead And I mean, considering I also have the front and the back already being split into 2 halves, what I can do now is I can just go ahead and just select between these 2 groups like this. So Control Shift and click in the middle here. I can go ahead and just subtract everything here. And I have to make sure that I didn't cause any errors here. So I think this will work. All I have to do now is just press Auto Groups. So I have something like that. Now I press Control Shift, click outside. And now you notice I have a left and a right section, almost, because this and this are still 2 different groups. So Control Shift, click between, Auto Group, and then Control Shift, click outside. And now, as you can see, I have a left and a right and the back section. And the only thing I have to do now is just split the back section into 2 pieces should I want to. For the most part, I think this will work. Yeah, let's see what happens if I do it this way. Actually, you know what? No, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just merge this left and right side. I can very easily later on just go ahead and just split these 2 sections into 2 halves because I already have the model selected from the front and the back. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to merge it. And now I have a front and a back selected like this. 2 very clean seams going all the way across, actually 3 because I have 1 here, 1 in this section, and 1 here. So everything's very nice and clean. And now that we have this done, I can go ahead and just use the UV unwrapper